Welcome back to Debunk Factory, where we take conspiracy theories and put them through the scientific blender until all that's left is facts and a really awkward silence from conspiracy theorists. Today, we're tackling what I like to call the Great Weather Paradox. The bizarre mental gymnastics where people simultaneously believe that climate change is a complete hoax and that the government has magical weather control powers. So apparently, according to some very creative folks on the internet, scientists are lying about climate change. You know, that thing with mountains of peer-reviewed evidence. But the government can totally control hurricanes with cloud seeding and secret weather machines. It's like saying, I don't believe in gravity, but I'm pretty sure the government is using invisible magnets to make things fall down. Let me get this straight. Mother Nature is supposedly too weak to change her own climate, but somehow human technology is so advanced that we can play God with weather systems. That's like saying you can't lift a pencil, but you can bench press a truck. Make it make sense. Let's start with the elephant in the room: climate change. Despite what your uncle's Facebook posts might suggest, climate change isn't a hoax. In a 2020 survey, roughly 25% of the U.S. population indicated agreement with the statement that climate change is a hoax. That's about 80 million people who think that thousands of scientists from dozens of countries got together and said, hey, let's all pretend the planet is warming for reasons. The scientific consensus on climate change is about as solid as the consensus that water is wet. We're talking about 97% of actively publishing climate scientists agreeing that human activities are the primary driver of recent climate change. That's more agreement than you'll find about literally anything else in science, including whether pineapple belongs on pizza. But here's where it gets really wild. Some climate change deniers assert that the scientific consensus on climate change is based on conspiracies to produce manipulated data or suppress dissent. So scientists are supposedly so evil and coordinated that they can fake global warming data across multiple countries, institutions, and decades. But somehow they're also so incompetent that random people on YouTube can figure out their master plan. Now let's talk about weather modification, because this is where things get really interesting. Weather modification is real, but it's not what conspiracy theorists think it is. Cloud seeding techniques have been developed over nearly 70 years through experimentation and trials. The geoengineering technology involves injecting microscopic particles, sometimes silver iodide, into the atmosphere to encourage rain and snowfall. Sounds scary, right? Well, here's the thing. While cloud seeding is a decades-old technique for increasing rainfall commonly used in drier states, there are still questions about how effective it really is. And there is no evidence that it is powerful enough to change the direction or intensity of hurricanes or major storms. So we've got a technology that's been around for 70 years, is publicly documented, and might increase rainfall by like 10% under perfect conditions. But according to conspiracy theorists, this is the same technology that's creating massive hurricanes and controlling global weather patterns. That's like saying because you can make a paper airplane, you can obviously build a space shuttle. Here's where my brain starts to hurt. The same people who think climate change is fake also think the government can control weather. Let me break down this logical pretzel for you. Position A. Climate change is a hoax because humans can't possibly affect something as big as the Earth climate. Position B. The government is using weather modification to create hurricanes and control storms. Do you see the problem here? If humans can't affect the climate, how can humans control the weather? Weather is climate in the short term. It's like saying, I don't believe in cooking, but I'm pretty sure the government is using ovens to control food temperature. Hurricane Helene provoked conspiracy theories about government weather manipulation. But these same people will tell you that climate change, the gradual warming of the planet over decades, is totally impossible. So a hurricane created by weather modification? Totally believable. A hurricane made stronger by warmer ocean temperatures. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk about scale, because this is where the conspiracy theory completely falls apart. The Earth's climate system involves 196.9 million square miles of ocean surface, 57.5 million square miles of land, an atmosphere that extends hundreds of miles up energy from the sun, equivalent to about 173,000 terawatts, continuously. Cloud seeding, meanwhile, affects local areas measured in square kilometers. That's like trying to heat your house by breathing on it. The scale difference is so massive that it's literally astronomical. More in Nevada, we can obviously create Category 5 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. As with conspiracy theories before it, the linking of the Texas flooding to cloud seeding tends to say more about human psychology than about science. We as human beings want to find answers to our why and who questions, Friedrich said, simply accepting that nature is powerful. Here's what's really happening. It's psychologically easier to believe in secret government weather control than to accept that we've accidentally warmed the planet by burning fossil fuels. One makes humans seem powerful and in control, even if it's the wrong humans, while the other makes us look like we've screwed up on a planetary scale. It's like when you're late to work and you blame traffic instead of admitting you hit snooze 5 times. Blaming weather modification gives people a villain to fight, while accepting climate change requires admitting we're all part of the problem. Climate change has millions of temperature measurements from around the world, ice core data going back hundreds of thousands of years, satellite measurements of atmospheric CO2, melting glaciers. You can literally see rising sea levels you can measure, shifting weather patterns documented over decades. Weather modification, conspiracy theories have, grainy YouTube videos, misunderstandings about cloud seeding. Correlation without causation arguments. The firm belief that silver iodide particles can somehow create massive storm systems. It's like comparing a peer-reviewed scientific paper to a fortune cookie. Both have writing on them, but only one is actually based on evidence. Although scientists have clarified that it is unlikely to significantly impact extreme weather events, deniers have exploited these mostly theoretical ideas to deny the reality of climate change. So here's the beautiful irony. People are using the existence of limited weather modification technology to deny climate change. It's like saying, since we can make ice cubes, obviously global warming is fake. The logic is so backwards it makes my head spin. Weather modification exists, but it's limited and local. Climate change is global and increasingly obvious. But conspiracy theorists have flipped the script. The real limited technology is supposedly all-powerful, while the global obvious phenomenon is supposedly fake. Tennessee lawmakers vote to ban geoengineering, with allusions to chemtrails conspiracy theory. So now we have politicians banning mostly theoretical technologies while ignoring the actual climate crisis. It's like passing a law against unicorns while your house is on fire. A small contingent of lawmakers are blaming silver iodide for extreme weather events, including the disastrous flooding in Texas. Silver iodide. That's the stuff they're worried about. Not the billions of tons of CO2 we pump into the atmosphere every year, but the tiny amount of silver iodide used in cloud seeding. You want to know what the real conspiracy is? It's not secret weather control, it's the decades-long campaign by fossil fuel companies to make people doubt climate science while promoting alternative explanations for extreme weather. According to the Global Risk Report 2024, misinformation and disinformation, together with the impacts of the climate and nature crises, are the biggest short-term and long-term risks to human society. The real conspiracy is making people believe that weather modification is more powerful than it actually is, while climate change is less real than it actually is. It's a perfect distraction. Blame the government's weather machines instead of addressing the actual problem. Real weather modification is limited to small areas, mostly experimental, publicly documented, minimally effective, completely transparent about its limitations. Real climate change is global in scale, backed by overwhelming evidence, happening right now, accelerating, causing measurable changes worldwide. The difference is like comparing a water gun to the ocean. Both involve water, but the scale and impact are completely different. The logical breakdown. Let me walk you through the logical problems with this conspiracy theory. If the government can control weather, why can't they stop droughts, floods, and hurricanes that cost them billions in damage? If climate change is fake, why are insurance companies, the people who actually calculate risk for a living, adjusting their policies for climate impacts? If weather modification is so powerful, why is cloud seeding still considered experimental and only marginally effective? If thousands of scientists are lying about climate change, why can't they coordinate well enough to get consistent funding? If the government has weather weapons, why don't they use them against actual enemies instead of their own citizens? The conspiracy theory doesn't just lack evidence, it doesn't even make internal logical sense. Most geoengineering options are theoretical and untested. That's the key word, theoretical. We're talking about ideas that exist mostly on paper and in computer models. But conspiracy theorists have taken these theoretical proposals and twisted them into evidence of active weather control programs. It's like reading a science fiction novel and then claiming that warp drives are real because you saw them described in a book. Real geoengineering research is about finding ways to potentially address climate change in the future. It's not about controlling hurricanes or creating floods. It's about possibly, maybe someday, having tools to help counteract the warming we've already caused. A conspiracy theory has circulated that the Lynmouth flood of 1952 was caused by secret cloud seeding experiments carried out by the Royal Air Force. However, meteorologist Philip Eden has given several reasons why it is preposterous to blame the Lynmouth flood on such experiments. This is a perfect example of how these theories work. Take a natural disaster, find any possible human weather modification activity in the area, and claim causation. It's like blaming your headache on the fact that someone in your city took aspirin. Extreme weather events have natural explanations that are well understood. But conspiracy theorists prefer to blame secret government programs rather than accept that nature is chaotic and sometimes dangerous. Climate deniers flood media with conspiracy theories whenever extreme weather events occur. It's a deliberate strategy. Flood the information space with alternative explanations so people don't focus on the actual cause. Every time there's a hurricane, drought, or flood, the same pattern repeats. Blame weather modification, ignore climate science, and muddy the waters with conspiracy theories. It's like a magician's misdirection trick, but for science, denial. Here's what's actually happening. Climate change is making extreme weather more frequent and intense. The solutions are well known but politically difficult. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transition to renewable energy, and adapt to the changes we can't prevent. Weather modification might someday be part of the solution toolkit, but it's not the problem. The problem is the extra heat we've trapped in the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels for 150 years. The bottom line. So here's the reality check. Climate change is real, backed by overwhelming evidence and happening right now. Weather modification is real, but limited. publicly documented, and nowhere near as powerful as conspiracy theorists claim. The idea that climate change is fake, but weather control is real, is like believing that bicycles are impossible, but unicycles can fly. It's a logical pretzel that only makes sense if you ignore physics, evidence, and common sense.